So it makes sense to take the old index page here and turn it into something that's actually going to list my notes. So let's go and change the code around so we can do that. At the moment, our action index does absolutely nothing. It literally just spits the template out for us. So let's use a finder on our new entity. So let's say notes equals this finder. And then what kind of finder do we want? Well, we want a demo pad note finder. And then I only want to show the notes that belong to me, because this is going to be a personal thing for each user. So let's come along and say where user ID is me, xf visitor user ID. And then we'll order those by post date in descending order so that the newest comes at the top. Does that make sense? Maybe, yes, we'll do that for now. And then that's actually not notes, is it? That's a notes finder. Note finder, and then we'll create some view params. And we'll pass in our, let's have some notes, and that can be note finder fetch, and then we'll pass the view params to the view. So that's the PHP done. There's no limits here. It's just going to show me all of the notes that belong to me. We're going to refine that a little as we go along, but for now that's all we need, especially as we only have 4 records in the database. So now let's head back to the template for the index page, and rather than having this rather straightforward single block with a hello there thingy in it, let's get rid of that and put the whole lot in a for each. So xf for each loop equals notes, and the key will be note ID, and the value is a note. And then I can take the block and put that inside. So we're going to have a block for each note. And then what should we do? Let's put a let's have a h2 class equals block head. Where's that? Well, what's it called? There we are, block header. And we'll put into that note title. And then in the block body with the block row, we'll have note content. That will do for now. Oh, let's also put in the date that this came in. So let's just do that simply. We'll have an xf date, and the time is note.postDate. We'll work with the edit date later on, and then let's just separate that from the content like this. So that all looks pretty basic, but it should do the job. We're going to come back and look at that once we're sure that this is actually working. And there we are. So here's the third note, the second note, and the 2 first notes. Relative dates automatically, of course, because that's part of the xf date syntax here. That all looks fine, but one thing you will note is that right now my text is just coming through as, and if I view the source, to be clear, it's not messing up the stuff that we've actually done. If we find it somewhere, what do we call it, anything? There it is. So it is coming in with the formatting that we used in terms of the line breaks, but of course that doesn't translate into the HTML. And in order to do that, we need to apply some structure to it. And the simplest way to get that structure is to just pipe this variable into a variable filter. And we happen to have a variable filter called NL2BR, new lines to breaks. And simply using that will cause this to translate any line breaks into new lines with a BR tag in HTML. So that's all straightforward. Now that looks like what we actually typed in. Let's go and add a new one and just check that this is all working as we would expect. So this is the 4th/5th note. And what should we have as the text? That'll do. Save that. And here it is. That was remarkably swift. Relative dates again, it's showing a moment ago, whereas this much earlier one is now showing when I actually recorded that. So there's a few bits and pieces we still need to add to this page to finish off the functionality that we're working with for here. One of which is the notion of the edit date being displayed, but obviously we can't have any edit dates until we've got something to edit with. So I think the first thing we should concentrate on is an edit button. So let's play around and get a button in here. Let's put it down at the bottom here, shall we? And we'll just stick it down underneath. I'm going to be lazy here and just use HRs. But the important thing is the syntax of this button command. So I've got a button and it's got an href, so it works a bit like a hyperlink. And then we're going to link it to notes/edit. In much the same way as we did with the action for the form on the edit form, and then I'm going to pass it note as its data so that it will know to go to notes edit title of note dot the note ID. Then I'm going to give it an icon of FA edit, which is a little box with a pencil on it. I'm happy with it being an overlay, why not? And then I'm going to give it a class of button text, and then I'm not interested in having a tooltip. Let's just say edit, and what we should end up with now is a nice looking little text style button underneath here. That works fine. So let's see what happens if we run one of these. There we go, there's the form, and if I edit that, save again, there we go, that's saved. So that's run through all of our code in the back end and refreshed the page, brought it back, and here we go. I guess now we need to implement that edit date. So let's come in here and let's say if, oh not if, xf if is equals per note dot edit date. So if there is an edit date that's not 0, then we'll have a span, and we'll just use a little utility class called uPullWrite. This is a handy little class, but I would recommend that if you are doing stuff that moves your content around, you give it a dedicated class and then go and put the CSS or the less for that in that class, rather than using these utility functions. So what do we want to put in that uPullWrite? We'll just say last edited, and then we'll put another date function in. So xf date time equals note dot edit date, and that should do it. So if I refresh this, we should see an edit date on this second note. Let's check it. There we go, last edited a minute ago. The other ones are not showing, obviously, because they haven't been edited, but if I were to go and edit this one, something like that. There we go, last edited a minute ago. Just to finish off this page, we need a button to take us to the add form rather than having to go and type it into the URL. And again, that's really quite straightforward. We have some template syntax to allow us to add a sort of page level button. We call it xf page action. And I don't need a conditional on there, but you can see that there is the ability to have one. But all I need to put in here is a xf button. The href this time is notes/add. And then I'll have FA add. Is that even a thing? Probably. I'll leave it as an overlay, and the button can be a button CTA, call to action. Again, don't need the tooltip. And let's add some text that says create new note. Save that out and see if that works. I'm expecting to hear, there it is, create new note. Obviously it didn't have an FA add, so let's have a quick look at the Font Awesome site and find out what we can use. There they are, and there's the icons. What can we have that's an add icon? FA plus square will do. Let's go in here and say FA plus square, refresh, and there's my little creation icon. And so let's hit that. This is my 6th note, and the note is save that out. Here it is. A moment ago, isn't this nice with an edit button? That's all looking good. And now finally, before we leave this page alone, remember that the code here, the PHP, is only working with stuff that belongs to the particular user that we're logged in as. On our note finder, we only show notes that belong to our user ID. Now that only makes sense if you're logged in, and as I said previously, we need to assert that only logged in users can actually access this. So let's head into here and we'll call up an extension of a function called pre-dispatch controller. Pre-dispatch controller is a method that runs before any of the actions are run. So anything that you want to apply to absolutely every thing that happens within this controller, stick it into pre-dispatch controller and you can ensure that it'll happen. And all I need to do here is to assert that we are registered. So registration required. That will check that the user is logged in and registered, and if it's not, then it'll show a no permission error or a you need to register kind of thing. But essentially it limits the access for this page to that logged in user only. And to go alongside this registration required assertion for the PHP code, I'd also like the Notes tab to disappear if you're not logged in. So let's head back to the admin navigation, which is, the public navigation, find my Notes tab, and you'll see that down here we've got a display condition. And in there you can put a condition to prevent the tab or the navigation item from being displayed at all if your condition isn't met. And it's already set in here, so it's xf.visitor.userid. And if that condition is not met because the user ID is 0, the user is a guest, then the tab won't show. I can show you that with something else. Let's say I've got x equals 5 as an example. Let's save that. So now if my user ID is not 5, then the tab will disappear. And there it is, it's disappeared. So let's go back and set it to be something a bit more sensible, making sure that we do have a visitor user ID. So it should reappear now, there it is. But if I were to log out, it would disappear just as the same way as when I only showed it when my user ID was 5.